Some days you feel like it's Groundhog Day. Other days it's completely different.
Where'd the kitties go? Reba. Okay. Let's see what my horoscope says for today. Let's see if it's going to be a good day or not.
I'm in my 20th year as judge. So in November it'll be 20 years. Well, I had practiced law for several years, and I found that I really liked helping people get through their situations and solve problems, be more of a problem solver. I felt like as a judge, I would be able to help people get through difficult situations. I've been here pretty much my entire life. Technology has really taken over. We do everything pretty much electronically now with e-filing and with our queues. We hardly even touch paper anymore. When I first became a judge, I felt really overwhelmed and nervous. But as you grow into the job and you sort of figure things out, then your anxiety eases. See, we're coming up to our Justice Center. We've been out here just over a year. So here we are. I think it would be good for people to see how it really works. Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody today? A judge's job just isn't the in-court things. We do have administrative things to do, reviewing our cases, working with the court administrator on different issues, personnel things. I do a lot of writing the local rules and revising local rules. So being a judge really has a lot of different facets.
All rise.
A lot of people always, when they find out that I'm a judge, they'll say, "Oh, are you like Judge Judy?" First of all, I say, well, I rarely, if I've ever watched the show, but my impression is that she's a lot more combative than I would be. I try to make people feel more calm, more at ease in court. I'm trying to make them feel comfortable. I don't want them to be afraid of being in court.
Thank you. You may be seated.
So yeah, you don't see a lot of like you see in the movies.
Can you tell me your full legal name, please?
The days of the attorneys wandering around the courtroom, orating and waving their hands and being, that, at least in my courtroom, is not true anymore, just because people kind of see through that and they really want to get down to the evidence.
Do you swear or affirm under penalties for perjury of the state of Indiana that the testimony you're about to give will be true?
People, I think, sometimes wonder, where's that one witness that's going to come out and just change the whole trial? But typically in a trial, I'm not going to say 100%, the attorneys will know what everybody's going to say.
Do you read and understand the English language? What is your age, your date of birth, and the last 4 digits of your social security number?
The most common morning of court we have would be our criminal mornings. I am there, the defense attorneys come in, the prosecuting attorney comes in, the probation officer's there. The sheriff's deputies will bring the inmates in, and then we just start calling cases.
I'm the elected prosecuting attorney for Delaware County. I'm constitutionally responsible for prosecuting all felonies, misdemeanors, and juvenile delinquency cases. I'd be lying if I said this was an easy job. We deal with people, victims and defendants, and witnesses at probably the worst point in their life usually. And so we see a lot of things that most people in the community will never, luckily, ever have to see or endure. So there are good days and there are bad days, but overall, I'm happy with what I do.
In a typical morning, you might see anything from initial hearings to sentencing hearings,
That says it, that I had court on the 26th.
all different types of cases put together, and we just go until we're done. If they plead guilty and they are immediately sentenced, typically they will go to probation. Some will go to community corrections, maybe for home detention, but typically they'll just go to the probation officer. They'll make an appointment and they'll go to probation. State courts differ from federal courts, so if you plead guilty, typically then there's a sentencing date set later. There's a report called the pre-sentence investigation is filed for the judge to consider and for the attorneys to have and study. If they plead guilty and they are immediately sentenced, typically they will go to probation.
My name is Lindsay Wilmus, and I'm a probation officer, adult probation officer in Delaware County Circuit Court 1 is what I'm assigned to. So if somebody is placed on probation, then we can be there to start that process. It's not as much theatrics. It's not as dramatic as people kind of think things are. Most of the time, normal court proceedings are relatively boring. You know, there's not, and it's not a lot that goes into it. Your trials would be much different. But yeah, it's not as theatrical, I guess. I know people just think that maybe we're here to just rat on people that get in trouble or, you know, just make sure they follow rules, and it's much more. At least 50% of our time is spent inside a courtroom.
My role over the courts within the building is supervising the court bailiffs. We provide court security for not only the judges and the magistrates and their staff, but also the public. I've never been one to shy away from cameras and on the streets or in the courts.
In Michigan's constitutional scheme, the Supreme Court has administrative control over all the trial courts. And in that, the Constitution says they can name an administrator and as many assistants as they need. That's my job. I'm the administrator. Michigan has had rules that allowed media, which 30 years ago meant networks, to come in and videotape in courtrooms. That has evolved over time. Anytime someone wants to bring a camera in the courtroom, they have to ask permission. There's a form for that. In Michigan, this office basically creates the forms. So there's, you know, the abbreviation for our organization is SCAO, and on the bottom of the form it says SCAO approved. And that we have a whole division that's all they do is track and draft those forms. So that starts with a request, and depending on the type of proceeding, there may be limitations. So if there's a jury in the room, the limitation might include don't show the face of a juror. If there's a victim in the room, the limitation might, but isn't necessarily, not to show the face of the victim in the room. Each individual judge, he or she, has the right to, within reasonable limits, control what the camera is facing at. But in general, there's not a lot of limits on what a media camera can be pointed at. There are certain proceedings, as you mentioned, with a juvenile or a victim of a crime, under certain circumstances where the judge is allowed to close the courtroom, meaning literally lock the front door. The word media is very tough these days, right? But members of the media are very respectful of what's going on in court. And I can think of specific situations where the parties would say, well, we want to make sure that the television camera that's now been allowed to be in the courtroom doesn't take a picture of the victim while he or she's testifying. I would just call the reporter and their camera person back and say, hey, don't take a picture of the victim while they're testifying, okay? And they'd say, of course not. That's great. We all good? We're good. So it's usually, you know, a very friendly relationship and easily maintained. I have not personally experienced any time where I thought a camera affected the way the conduct of a proceeding moved forward. I'm not really even aware of that being an issue in Michigan, that the fact that there's a camera in the courtroom has changed things. There are certainly witnesses who are anxious or fearful, and the fact that there's a camera in the courtroom may exacerbate that, but it's something we work through on a case-by-case basis, whether there's a camera there or not. those are the kind of cases where you might have some sort of a protective order, that the camera can't be directed at this individual while he or she are testifying. And again, there are rules to protect vulnerable witnesses in situations like that. I think the related question is how does the camera in the courtroom help how other people experience the process? The judicial branch only has our credibility. We don't have jails and police cars and guns. And so basically our currency is trust. And trust is established through transparency. And so if we're talking about transparency and wanting to see people, show people what's really happening in courtrooms, cameras are a great asset. Because what's going on in courtrooms is decent and respectful and a pursuit of truth and justice. And if people can see that, then those efforts become real. If we are trying to find a just result behind closed doors, people may or may not believe that's what's happening. And if it's happening on a camera, people will see that's what it's happening. We're strong supporters of judges showing who they are to the public because it just makes our job easier in the long run.
Not every case is a super high profile, nationally broadcast, talked about case. There are just everyday, like I said, everyday cases that need to be adjudicated. There needs to be a resolution to it. I continue to say that if people see the volume of cases that we have and how much work we have to do, just the sheer number of cases, they'll see that we really do try to be efficient. We try to work through cases. We only have so much court time, and how we spread it out and how we use it is so important.
I don't see a major concern. I would say I would see a concern personally as far as if you're looking at a severe case like involving a child, a minor, a sexual assault case. I can see a concern personally. I believe if you've done nothing wrong, you got nothing to hide type mentality. If you said, oh, there's a camera there, I'm going to act different, you're judging their character. You're changing. No, they're going to stick to what they think is right. They swear an oath just like we do. Even though we may not agree with stuff, we still have to do what is right. But I do have an issue with having cameras in there when you're dealing with certain cases, because see, there's certain things that not everybody needs to see. I have no problem having cameras in there for your everyday Joe Blow, whatever, and it protects the public as well as it protects the court staff or the officer or whoever. But there are certain things there's things in court that you just, for lack of a better comment, there's things that people don't need to see unless they're there, or unless they're authorized to be there and see it.
People have their own opinions of the court. There's a public opinion, obviously. I think for the attorneys, they're probably more prepared because they are on camera. But as far as the defendants, it's just normal court. What you see is what you see. It's no different. It's not what you see on TV. It's opening that door for people to see what it's like in the courtroom versus what you think it's like.
Okay, Mr. Gotze has two cases, C1-2004 F6268, C1-2101 F618. Both cases are probation. Anything preliminary before we begin the evidence?
Personally, I didn't notice too much about the cameras. I don't know about if it influenced or affected other people in the court proceedings, but no, I didn't feel that it didn't distract me. It didn't make me, I don't feel like it disrupted the court or anything like that. I definitely can see it being beneficial to the public so that they can see. A lot of people don't go and sit inside a courtroom unless you have a specific reason to. Even though it's open to the public, we don't get people just for enjoyment to come watch court proceedings. So I think it would really help people out there understand what all goes into it, especially if you're talking about a trial and the different things that go into a trial. So I think it's very beneficial to show people what all goes into court proceedings. And some things aren't so cut and dry, like I know the public likes to think that how things are done in court are. And so it's definitely almost a learning tool to educate people out that are not used to coming into court. But then again, on the same token, I can see maybe for privacy of victims, it could become an issue. So it would just be a case-by-case basis, I think, at that point.
I think it would alter the witness, the general public, yes. Not all, no, not all of them, but I think you would find cases where it could. Because you will get those people that are going to come in there and they're going to get asked by defense or prosecutors or whatever, hey, come in, what's your side of it? How's this work? What's this, what's that? I don't want to get involved. I don't want this, I want that. No, look, no one's going to know about this. We just need you to come in, do this for the court, because the right thing to do, which it is. But that same person, if they go in there and not know that there's a camera coming in, I've seen people get in there and go into court that the staff may have thought this person's going to come in and they're going to be a great witness. And then they had to talk to them and slow down and say, hey, calm down. It's just the court staff here. It's just this, it's just that. Relax. Because they get anxious and they're not just talking one-on-one anymore or one on two or three with the staff. They're looking at all these people going, oh crap, what could happen? What could happen? Now, if a camera comes in there and they go, oh no, who's seeing this out there? What if this person or this person or this person sees it? Then they could come back and hurt me or my family. I don't think it's a big security thing. The one major security issue I could see is if a witness gets up there and starts doing what they're supposed to do and everything goes smooth, everything's happy-go-lucky and the case is great, everything's settled, well then someone on the other end of that device sitting at home or wherever they may be gets upset and doesn't like what they say. Well, here they come rolling to the courthouse. Well, now you've changed the game. So if that person gets upset, now they're rolling towards there and they're waiting for them to come outside, and what do we have then? And I don't want to put words and make it more than it is, but in this job, regardless in this building or on the road, it's not black and white.
I think once the attorneys get into the action, I don't think that they're noticing the cameras or that they're playing to them or anything. I really think that they adapt and they do what their job is. And so, yeah, I don't see that it is an issue. I think having some of these trials on television has been very good just because I think people see what the evidence is and what the witnesses are actually saying. Well, I think the positives would be that people could see how it really does work. I don't know, I don't really see any negatives. I mean, I think there would be negatives with certain cases. For example, cases involving children, I think I'm very sensitive to not letting children's matters be publicized just because, they're young and they can't really protect themselves and you don't know how it might be used in the future. But I constantly get feedback from jurors after they've been through a trial saying, I'm really so glad I had the chance to do this because I had no idea this is how it worked.
The state has charged you in this case with count 1, dealing in a narcotic drug.
It's just so different from what I thought. Under this order from the Indiana Supreme Court, it's up to the judge what can be recorded or broadcast. What the Supreme Court is basically doing is gathering data is the way I look at it. I can't speak for the Supreme Court, obviously I'm not on the Supreme Court, but I see it as a good tool to gather data. Who's interested in coming into the courtroom, what kind of media, what types of things are they doing? I guess also to gather, how does it affect the people in the court? Are they bothered by it? Do they hold back or do they act differently? It's also to gather data, I think, for judges. Is it easy to handle these things? Does it cause more problems for the judge or more issues for the judge? So I think it's a really good experiment to see how it would work out if this were allowed on an everyday basis. So they tried to pick out courts that had different types of dockets to see what the interest was in these different kinds of cases.
So the impact, I think, will come after this when the project's over, and this will become like hopefully some sort of public avenue for them to be able to watch this and see what courts are really like and kind of how it is for us as employees.
I think I see it both ways. I definitely can see it being beneficial to the public. I mean, a lot of people don't go and sit inside a courtroom unless you have a specific reason to, even though it's open to the public.
You find the defendant guilty of count 1, intimidation.
And on the same token, I can see maybe for privacy of victims, it could become an issue.
When you do get out, make sure you're healthy and ready to be a good father to your children.
I would not mind seeing where this goes and how it would affect the community and those that, never been inside a courtroom before.
I think overall, I was very pleased. I didn't think that the cameras were distracting at all. The people that were operating the cameras and the media were very professional, came in, got everything set up, got things taken down, didn't really notice. I didn't notice any difference in how people testified or reacted. I thought everybody stayed very true to reality. I didn't see any acting for the cameras or anything like that. It seemed very real. What we would expect from court. Time-wise, it didn't cost us any additional time out of our day or anything like that. It was nice to have Emily. I would like to thank Emily Anderson, our court administrator. She was a great help to help coordinate between the media and the court. So that was very helpful to have that interface. But overall, I would say it was a very good, positive experience. I heard a lot of good comments from people in the community who were able to see the pictures, who were able to see the coverage. I just think it was something that was very good for our community. I think it kind of gives everybody a little idea of exactly what it looks like inside the courtroom, the emotion. I think some of the emotion came out through the photos, the emotion involved. So yeah, I think it gives them just a different perspective, but that visual images, I think, gave everybody just a little bit better peek into what it's really like. People, they always have an impression of what courtroom is like just from TV shows and from the fictional TV shows and then the judge shows. And, I think it shows that it's really a lot different than that. Even though we allowed the media into the courtroom, we still maintained professionalism and civility, and we maintained the decorum of the courtroom. So I think it will be very helpful. We had a lot of good response to surveys. The jury trial that we did, apparently quite a few jurors responded to the survey. So I think they have a lot of data in front of them to make a decision of whether they want to make this a permanent part of Indiana. I'm retiring, as you know, at the end of the year. I'd like to see at least some option for maybe not 24/7 access, but at least the opportunity for media to come in and cover at least certain things. Because I think it is so important for people to see, especially on certain kind of cases, what is really going on in the courtroom. What it's going to look like will be up to the Supreme Court. Whether they want to do it, what it will look like, it's going to be up to them. But I think overall, my opinion would be it was a good experience and there should be some type of access.
The majority of our cases in our courtrooms are open to the public. So this is the camera side of it. That's why it doesn't bother me. It's no different than every day.
So I think it would really help people out there understand what all goes into it, especially if you're talking about a trial.
One thing I did learn from this experience is that, media really can be very easy to work with, and, it's not to be afraid of the media. And so I do think that, especially in the high-profile cases or the cases that the community is really interested in, that some type of media coverage would be helpful for the public to understand. However we can get the message of the courts and the mission of the courts in front of people, I think it's important.